You're about to watch me read Carrie Soto is Back by Jenkins Reid. I have only heard good things about this book, and I also really like the cover because I like that she's like looking up at the author's name. I think that's really cool. But basically, from my understanding of this book and my expectations going into it is that my expectations are of course very high because I've never heard anything bad about this book. So I'm expecting it to be just like incredible. And what I think this book is about, it's about Carrie Soto, who's I believe is this woman on the cover here, and she is like the world, like the top player in tennis, like the world champion in tennis, and she has like all these amazing records and stuff, and she retires, and then she ends up kind of going to, I think, like an Olympic game to like watch, and she sees somebody destroy her records, and she's like, well, that's not good. So she's basically now like training with her dad to get back in the game, but because she's like a little bit older now, like her body doesn't work the same way, but she's very determined to get her record back. And so she's gonna be back for like 1 year in the tennis season to basically make sure that her record stays her record. So I'm really excited to read this, and yeah, so let's just jump right into it. So I'm about 100 pages into Carrie Soto is Back, and so here are my thoughts so far. I know nothing about tennis. To be honest, I don't really know much about sports except for like soccer and hockey, but I don't know anything about tennis at all. But somehow I'm interested in reading a book about tennis. And I don't know if it's just because like the author's right, and like Jenkins Reid is a really good writer from what I'm seeing. I've never read any of her other books. This is the first one. So I really like the kind of style. I love that it's the perspective of Carrie. I really like the kind of like the transcripts of like the newscasters, and I like the press release and like the articles as well, like because you can really see the different forms of writing, because journalistic writing for the articles is different than like the writing from like Carrie's perspective, or even like the transcript. So there's like different elements of writing that I'm just like really admiring as a writer and a person who works in content like every single day, that it's just really cool to be able to see this author kind of like flex her writing muscles. In terms of the story, I'm really enjoying it as well. I love the books that are like, they kind of start off in the present day and then they give you all the background and then you're thrown back into present day, very similar to like Lessons in Chemistry did, as well as like Hello Beautiful and anything within like that kind of literary fiction genre. I absolutely love it. And so like it kind of starts off with Carrie seeing this woman about to destroy her record. Like she's tied now, and Carrie retired like 5 years ago, and so she sees this, she's like, so she's like, turns to her dad who stood next to her, and she's like, you know, we gotta get back in there. And then it kind of goes back in time to like the start of her career. And so her dad was like a pretty famous tennis player, is known as the Jaguar, and he pretty much trained her whole entire life and always told her like she's gonna be the greatest, like she's the Achilles of tennis, which I don't really agree with that, telling her like she's gonna be number one. And he kind of like reflects on that later when she's a little bit like older, because when she's in her 20s, so it kind of follows from like literally from when she's born, she's able to walk and like pick up a tennis racket, and how he's always there and he's like supporting her. But they were very, very focused on tennis, and part of me wonders like, does she actually like tennis, or does she like tennis because her dad likes tennis and that's like a way to bond? Not entirely sure yet, but she does seem to like tennis if she does it forever, but we'll see what happens. But that was just kind of like my thoughts, just kind of like starting off with that. Like, I don't know if she actually likes tennis and she just wants to be the best. And when she doesn't win, she gets really upset and she thinks like her dad's not going to want to coach her anymore. So it's kind of like hinting to me that maybe she doesn't like tennis as much as she thinks she does. She likes it and wants to win because she wants to make her dad proud. And so it was really heartbreaking that when she's 20, she ends up getting a different coach who's not her dad, and like they had this big falling out. I won't explain like exactly why that happened, like that's a surprise for you when you read it. And they don't work together for 15 years. They still talk to each other, but it's very like surface level, and then it kind of gets a little bit deeper, like conversations she never really had, because he was in a way more like a coach than like a dad, I would say. And then once they stopped like mentor and kind of coach, like that kind of coach relationship, I think that allowed their relationship to kind of blossom a little bit more. But now he's the coach again in present time, and so I'm gonna find out what happens. But she's officially announced like Carrie Soto is back, and a lot of people in the world, in this like sports world, don't like her. They think that she's a big jerk, and she's just very blunt and very honest, and I honestly really like her. So the only thing I would say is that although I really love like the Spanish kind of like sentences in there, I have no idea what it says, which maybe that's a downfall on me, because I only know like English, and that's all I know. But I wish there was like a, I don't know, like a way for me to know without like having to Google it every time, like what they were saying. But maybe that's just like a silly uncultured thing, because yeah, that's my only like, then I'm like, oh, I don't really know what that says. So then I feel like really confused, and then I feel very uncultured, and then I feel really like lame and disappointed, because like it's such a beautiful language and I don't know what it is. So yeah, I'm gonna continue reading this book, and I'll update you probably about the halfway point, and I'll let you know what's happening. So see you then. We are now at the halfway point of Carrie Soto is back. So this kind of like next section really focuses on like the opens that she's playing. So there was the Melbourne Open, and there is the Paris Open that she's preparing for, and there's 4 in total. And if I understand correctly, and again, I don't know anything about tennis, but I think she just needs to win one of them to get the Grand Slam title, or she needs to win 2 of them, something like that, because she basically wants to get one more Grand Slam title, because right now like she and the woman who's like kind of tied with her right now, Nicki Chan, are at the same level right now. And so that's why like she came back, because she needs to get one more to be number 1 again. And that's like really important to Carrie. Carrie's whole thing has always been about like, I'm the best, I'm the greatest, like that whole like mindset. And so if she loses or feels like a failure, like she doesn't take it very well at all. And I wonder if it's because of like she was growing up and she was always told like, you're the best, you're the best, you're the best. And so she's probably really scared about like, what does it mean if I'm not the best? And so I think that that's just like a really interesting like theme throughout. And it's like a really real theme that a lot of people face in real life. There's also the introduction of a character named Bowe, and he's basically like the only person who's willing to train with Carrie. And so they're kind of forming like this friendship, which is nice, and maybe a relationship. And they had been together previously, just like hookups and stuff, because I think based on like Carrie's kind of experience, because she's always moving around and like going to different places for these tournaments, she's never really had like a steady friendship or a steady relationship or really anything like that. She's just kind of done hookups because she's really scared of love. And I wonder again, because with her mom, and like she loved her mom, and then like I'm not gonna say what happened to her mom, but something happened to her mom when she was a kid, and so I feel like maybe that's kind of like rooted. I feel like I'm like psychoanalyzing poor Carrie here. Yeah, but I'm really enjoying just like watching like Carrie interact. Like she and Bowe, like they're kind of playing together. They have like some moments where they're just like really talking to each other, because they really understand what it's like, and what it's like not only to be like, to love this game and like enjoy winning, of course, but also like the struggles that they're both facing as like more mature tennis players. And I think that that's like a really interesting kind of like perspective that the book kind of has with it. For example, like in the Melbourne Open, Carrie, by like second or third round was already exhausted because like her body doesn't work the same way as it used to. Like her stamina is not the same, like all of this. And I think that that's really interesting because like you have like these great stories about these great athletes, and it's when they're in their prime and then they kind of retire, and it's like that was like their peak. And so what I like about this is like it's not focusing on her peak, it's focusing on she was the best, and now like just as you age there are more challenges that come with it. And it's not really just like, I mean, it starts off kind of her fighting against it, but now it's kind of like working with it. And I think that that's really cool, and I really like where the story is going. So where I'm at right now is Carrie's about to start the Paris Open, and her kind of like rival Nicki Chan is gonna be there as well. She wasn't in the other one because she had like a hurt ankle, and so that kind of like allowed Carrie to kind of go into that and not kind of like worry about her. But now that she's gonna be in this kind of round, like I'm wondering if we're gonna get that 1v1 or like what's gonna happen, because like there's still 3 opens left, like including Paris, so like I don't know where it's gonna go, or like I don't even really understand like how tennis works. Like if she just wins one, like is that okay? Or if like she loses 3 of them but wins one, does she still get her title? I'm not entirely sure. I'm not familiar with tennis enough, but I'm definitely really interested, and like I love the way that it's written, and it really does feel like you're watching like a sports game. It's like, it's really interesting. So that's where we are right now. I'm gonna continue reading this book, and I will see you in my next update. Carrie just made it to the championship final, and I'm like, I'm so excited, even though like, she's not real, but like I'm excited for her. So I'm a little bit like closer to the end of the book now, and so she's in the 3rd of 4 tournaments, and so she's finally kind of overcome some of the mental blockers that she was having, and she was able to like destroy this other opponent, and then now she is gonna be going up against Nicki Chan. And she and Nicki Chan actually ran into each other, and they had a drink together as well, just kind of like chit-chatting, and they're very similar as well in terms of like personality and aspirations. And I really liked like they had this conversation about how because of Carrie, she set all of these great records that make Nicki want to become a better tennis player, and like kind of like I really like that, because it's like Carrie was basically saying like, oh, like you're just trying to take all my records, like you don't have anybody like me who's like playing against you, like in terms of like rivals and stuff. And she's like, well, I am playing against you. Like she's like trying to get her records because she's inspired by that, and like that's her goal. And I don't know, I just thought it was a really nice like kind of scene with them together. And what makes this like tournament even more like nail biting is that Carrie's dad ended up going to the hospital, and he had like heart surgery with like a pacemaker put in, and so like he's not able to watch the game live, and that stresses me out so much, because like what if he dies, and I don't want him to. Yeah, so I had to pause where I was right now because I was like, oh my goodness, like I don't know what's gonna happen in this championship finals. And she's on her best surface, which is grass, and so like everything's looking pretty good for her, but I don't know what's gonna happen. Like, is she gonna lose this one? Is she gonna win this one? But if she wins this one, she's still tied for the records because Nicki just won one. So I'm assuming that the last 2 is what's gonna count. So if she wins in this one, then it's like the battle in like the 4th and final kind of like open tournament. So let's find out. I just finished Taylor Jenkins Reid's book, Carrie Soto is Back. I'm actually really happy with the way that the book ended, and the kind of like epilogue at the end, how it kind of ended in a way like a cliffhanger, but in like a really exciting, fun way. I think like overall this book really does feel like you're watching a sports match, and like it's so intense and you're like really like what's gonna happen next, like you just keep on reading through it, and that's like kind of the experience that I've had with it. It's like the most exciting, most intense, high pressure parts of a sports game. So you don't just have like some of the back and forth, you have the really intense like at the edge of your seat moments, but it's like the entire book. I really liked Carrie's character. I thought that she was great. I liked her agent. I liked Bowe. I think that a lot of the characters though, like, oh, I loved her dad of course as well, but I think a lot of the characters were very like surface level characters, like there wasn't much depth to them. I think that Carrie definitely had more depth than like the other characters and is from her perspective, but like Bowe, like not really much going on. With Gwen, not really much going on. Like I think like Carrie and her dad had the most like kind of depth to them, but I think that there was still opportunity for more. However, and that's what's weird about this book, is that even though the characters weren't like super deep, they weren't like all of them, like they weren't all like super fleshed out or anything, but the story was so interesting and so fast paced that I found that it didn't bother me that much. Like I would have preferred definitely like a stronger relationship with Carrie and Bowe, like more kind of like intimate moments, not just like physically, but like more emotionally intimate moments, or just like funny moments together. Like I think that would have like strengthened the relationship a little bit better, especially because she has that fear of like commitment, that fear of love. I would have liked to see more of that, but I think again, like her character itself, I really liked. It was just really entertaining. Like I was just entertained. That was kind of its whole purpose. Like it wasn't really like a deep hardcore book, but it was definitely one of those things that like it's a page turner for sure. And so with that, I actually am gonna award this book 4 stars. And that's kind of generous, because usually if it's like the characters don't meet the mark and the story doesn't meet the mark or anything like that, like usually I'll give it like a 3 or 3.5. And I thought about it, but I'm like, I was so entertained that it deserves another star. And like the writing like is really captivating. So even if it has its kind of like downfalls with like lack of really in-depth characters, it makes up for it because of just how engaging it is. So I had a really fun time reading this book. It was just so much fun. So if you're looking for like a nice, fun, kind of intense, but not really too character, like not really side character focused, more like focused on a woman and her rise to fame, and then her rise to try to reclaim that fame, even though her body doesn't work the way it used to because she's much older, I think that I would definitely recommend this book, Carrie Soto is Back. Thanks so much for watching. If you haven't already, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and turn on the bell notification. That way you get notified anytime a new video comes out. As you can tell, I love books. I love to talk about books. The next book that I'm reading is The Clockwork Angel by Cassandra Clare, part of the Infernal Devices series. So really excited to start reading this. And so if you like this video, don't forget to hit the like button, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!